Good morning. It's Friday. It's
It
Grief Chat
is.
time. I'm Jill.
I'm Deb.
And together we're the Friday Grief Chat.
We are.
Or
I wonder if people think it's so odd that we're always thinking about grief or we're always talking about death and dying. I mean, maybe it's okay now that I'm older. They expect this kind of stuff from, an almost 70-year-old or something. But,
I was in a Hallmark store the other day and they had Snoopy cups that said good grief. And I was like, oh my gosh, grief cups. And the people around me were like, there's something.
I know.
That's a Snoopy's Charlie Brown thing. I'm like, no, I do grief. I love this.
I think, and I totally admit that I just don't want people to feel the way I felt. And there was never anybody to really talk about all those things that actually still go through your head.
Right.
And especially this time of year when anxiety is out the roof. And also, someone posted something about all the people that help other people, but those people, their lives aren't perfect, but they somehow, when I say they, I mean you and I, one, it might give relief to our own, like falling into deeper anxiety because we can focus on other people. And just like Mr. Rogers says, look for the helpers. And so we look for the helper within ourselves to focus on. So
we do. And the helpers do need help this time of year. And we have lots of people who are experiencing all kinds of layers of grief this time of year.
I know.
I've got my Christmas earrings on, houses are decorated, but we also have had so much go on in the world this week. And I have a friend who just lost her dad, and
who did?
And a friend of mine just lost her dad, and while he'd been failing, it was still sort of that bump, right?
Right.
And this time of year between Thanksgiving and February is the highest percentage of deaths of the year. And so there's lots of people with anniversaries this time of year.
And, it's also not just this culture. A friend of mine from another country, I won't say which country because I don't know how much I'm allowed to share, but within his circle of very close friends, one of their ex-husband died by suicide. And, it's his own health was failing, and I don't know any other details, but I do know that this is a really, people tried to get through the holidays, and then January.
Right? Because just as we finish Hanukkah and now Christmas, we go right into New Year's, and New Year's is when there's all of that. Oh, we're going to talk about everybody we've lost this year and memorialize the big names. And there are some big names, and they should be memorialized. But everyone else has had losses too.
So I'm going to jump into this week.
Please.
And on Sunday morning, I had already known about the Brown University shootings. And I'm pretty sure you can fact check me on this. The person who did the Brown shootings, we heard, also did shot before he took a gun to himself. He shot an MIT professor. But we didn't know that on Sunday. Then as I was also in the morning, before I went online to do our church service, something just horrific happened in Australia, where it was definitely anti-Semitic. It was meant to kill as many people. It was a murder of all these Jews while celebrating the first night of Hanukkah.
At Bondi
And,
Beach.
which took me back to how many Hanukkah parties my cousins and I had when we were little.
Right.
And then right after that, by the evening, there was really a beloved by many and well-respected director and actor, Rob Reiner, and his father, very famous, Carl Reiner. But
his wife, Michelle.
Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle, were also murdered.
Yes.
And I will tell you, after I got done with my broadcast by noon, while paying respects to the first two murders, all of a sudden I sort of went numb.
Right. Like how much more?
I took this very personally. Now, a lot of people don't realize I don't follow exactly or whatever the Jewish religion. When I say follow, that means integrate. But I am very culturally Jewish.
You identify.
And yes. And I will tell you, I was a wreck. I tried cuddling up next to Daryl. Finally, I have breakthrough anxiety medicine, and that helped me sleep an hour or two in the afternoon. And I woke up feeling just as shitty as I did before. And the next day, so I was still numb when I lit the candles. But the next day, and I will share here, because where we live, there are anti-Semitic people who I am glad that none of them have made an overture to me.
Right.
However, I will say, because our candles are in the bay window. Our Christmas tree, you can see two Christmas trees actually. And I will say exactly what was in my head when I was, in defiance. This is what I said inside my head as I lit the second night. And I said, go ahead and shoot me MFs. I mean, I was that angry.
Right.
And, I'm like, go ahead, look at me in the window, lighting my Jewish candles. Everybody should have that right to celebrate openly.
Yes. They should be able to have the candles in the window and the blow-up dreidel in the yard. They should have all of it. That should not be a fear. And yet so many of my friends were debating openly whether or not
That's right.
Put the candles in the window or any kind of indication
that
it was a Jewish home.
So now you see, I'm numb. These aren't stages of grief. These are all part of grief. Think of it as a really, tragedy. Say again.
They're responses to grief, tragedy, and trauma.
And then the next day, my anxiety was out the roof again. But I had things to do for Thursday where there were two other high anxiety things that were happening for yesterday. However, I mitigate anxiety with creativity. That's something I've always done. And my daughter does it too. And the I haven't posted it on Facebook. I know I sent them to Steve. I made 8 batches of Rice Krispie treats, but I combined double batches in these huge pans so I could make Rice Krispie treat Christmas trees out of them. And
Nice.
with plenty of scraps to hand out to others.
I love that.
And then I made a beautiful Christmas tree charcuterie board. And both of the anxiety times came out perfectly. Everything was, I slept in parts last night, and that leads me to today, where I wear one Christmas ornament type thing, a light. I have a rainbow, and I have Day of the Dead. So
All balanced.
I needed balance today, you know.
Right.
And so I am sharing my parts of grief with our studio audience. And now, Jill, I'm going to be quiet so that you can share your grief and how you have felt and mitigated this week.
This week has been a hard one. And I really appreciated Joe Muirhead from Australia, who right after Bondi Beach put up a post that said, mass shootings are not part of Australian culture.
Right.
They collected the guns. They control the guns well there. That when they had a mass shooting years ago, people voluntarily turned in their weapons. They have a very different approach to guns than we do here. And as a result, they don't have mass shootings. And so she said very eloquently, this is not normal for us, the way it's almost normal for the States, basically. And then for it to be an anti-Semitic hate crime on top of it, please don't act like this is normal. Don't do that thoughts and prayers thing, because this is really challenging everything about Australia. And please don't post pictures. Don't show us that nobody needs to be re-traumatized. It's in our heads. We don't need to do that again. And I appreciated that she said that. And then here in our community, there are ties to the Reiner family here in Riverside that are pretty significant. And most of Southern California people know people who are in the entertainment industry. That's just part of being in Southern California. And so that loss being so associated also with mental health and substance abuse and parents who tried really hard to get someone help and literally paid with their lives. It's it took a lot of wind out of folks. And one of the ways that we dealt with it was we had a community menorah lighting sponsored by Chabad here in Riverside, and it was the best attended one ever. And there were hundreds of people out in front of our local courthouse to see the menorah lighting and listen to the music and eat all the donuts and all of the things, and to stand up against the fear that somebody might try it again. And we also had a significant law enforcement presence, and they circled around us, and the chief was there, and so there's been that as well. It's been a lot of holding space for folks who have had their sense of safety even more challenged. Not that it wasn't already challenged. And the fact that it happened in the middle of Hanukkah, both of these, was just such a challenge. And then so now I've got clients saying, do I celebrate Christmas openly? Because we just saw the Jewish community under attack? How do we do this? And the answer is you acknowledge the loss. If you know someone who died, you attend all the things, you show up at community memorials, you send a kind note quietly to people who you know are struggling.
Mhm.
You acknowledge if it's causing you struggle. So this has also been the week of the anniversary of my dad's death, although it's
Mhm.
been 18 years. And last week was the anniversary of one of my wife's deaths. So we
Mhm.
have that kind of as
Mhm.
tradition as well in our family. People die at holidays in my family. We've got every holiday covered except for perhaps Lincoln's birthday. I think we've got everything else covered. We got 4th of July and Memorial Day and New Year. We got all of it. So there isn't a holiday that doesn't have a loss associated. Stephen said that the celebration was a good time and they stood proud against hatred, and that was very true.
Mhm.
Yep.
You,
So what do we do when there's such a striking tragedy? You've had a murder in your family.
yes, I have.
Mhm.
And actually a couple, but
Mhm.
yes, I was impacted greatly. And I didn't know that it was dysregulating back then to keep hearing my cousin's name on the news. You know, that was back in
Mhm.
my early 20s. And to have my maiden name put in the news, you know, every single day now, which it was Epstein, that in itself just, you know, like when you hit your elbow, they call it your funny bone,
Right.
and it tingles. This emotionally tingles. I won't say I'm super reactive,
Mhm.
but I know that while that's no relationship whatsoever, it to hear, to see it,
It touches everyone.
you know, there's a couple things I put on Facebook, some memes that were really for me and I wanted to share. And one is, especially at this time of year, when you have those dysregulating moments. And I will say in grief, you know, that dysregulation, I don't want to use the word trigger. I'm using the word dysregulation
Which is
right
far
in the
more illustrative.
say again.
Mhm. It's far more illustrative because it really
Yes.
is. It's a dysregulation of thought process, of emotions, of emotional reactivity.
And if you want to say it this way, it could be I feel knocked off my center point.
Right. Mhm.
That's what it feels like. Like I might have to gasp or I might have to go, or just like when you hit your funny bone, you go, ah, like that. It
Right.
doesn't take the whole day. It's a moment. And so here's what I put on. It was showing yin yang symbols, which most people know what they are.
Mhm.
And they use the word good and bad, which I prefer, not that I don't slip into that, but I prefer not to use the words good or bad. This is a good experience. This is a bad experience because sometimes, and we've all heard the different Buddhist stories of, you know, what appears to be a bad experience can turn into a good experience. So I use light and dark because that makes more sense to me, especially when we're coming up to the darkest day of the year and we use lights to light our way past the darkest light of the year. Plus, it's a symbol. Light is a symbol. Candles are a symbol
Yes.
in many, many cultures.
Mhm.
So it shows that all of us every human being has light and dark within them. Some, it could be a tiny, tiny bit of light that they don't even know. And then some of us, not some, all have a tiny, tiny piece of dark.
Right.
And, you know, let me say another big grief I felt this week was DT's response, global response, social media response to the death of Carl Reiner. And I was highly dysregulated. And it threw me into, I don't say this very often. And maybe I was still hoping beyond all reason for a modicum, a tiny bit of what I would call decorum. And I was so disappointed. I said, that's it, I'm done.
Right.
This person who is deemed a leader, that people elected as a leader, I have no respect. I do not care what their title is. All respect is gone. I have been personally disappointed. Now, that sounds weird considering all the other stuff. And believe me, I take he declines about anti-Semitism, but he allows it. So it's like, as opposed to the Prime Minister of Australia owned up to that they had been warned that anti-Semitism was escalating, and he owned that.
Yes.
And then he went to Parliament, God knows how long that's going to be, that there are changes, but he at least owned that. And this person that is deemed our president owns nothing. And
Right.
I have no respect. It's like it's gone. And
added to the trauma for folks. And that is that when there is grief, whether it's public grief, whether it's a public loss, even if it's just that someone Luke died this week, of Luke and Laura. How many of us?
I know,
right? We lost Luke too. And that was a death of natural causes. But whenever there's a public loss, there's a public response to some extent for those people who had some kind of identification with that loss. And it brings back the dysregulation of prior losses. And we're in a holiday season.
Mm-hmm.
And it's dark early, but it will be getting light sooner. And we're supposed to be joyous, and it's really hard to be. Now, Joanne just said she's going to they're having a bring your own menorah at the local temple tonight.
Oh,
so for the last night of Hanukkah, they're celebrating together with the bring your own menorah.
That's great.
Isn't that nice? But there's other ways to manage the emotions and to allow for the emotions and not to self-criticize for the emotions, but also own that even if it's a public death and one that you are not connected to, we are connected because it's a loss.
I'm sure many of our listening audience has heard, oh, really? You can get over this. You don't even really know that person. And,
every person on that beach was somebody's father or mother or child. There was a Holocaust survivor who was killed.
I know.
And, every parent who has a troubled child and has felt stressed had some identification with Carl Reiner and Michelle Singer Reiner. And, we've had all the cross identification. Everybody has some connection.
So I've been listening a lot to Steve Leader, who we had on our program, and he talked about, he gave an example of hope. And here was the example that while in Auschwitz, there was a father and a son, and the father tore a little part of his uniform, just a little piece, and he showed the son just a little bit of margarine, just a little pat of margarine. And he said, it's our first night of Hanukkah, so he rolled the threads into a tight little wick and he stuck it in the margarine, and he said the prayers and lit a little part of his uniform and used the margarine and was able to carry on with the tradition, the Jewish tradition. And the son said, but Father, we could have eaten that little bit of margarine. I mean, we need all the calories we can get. And the father said, we could go a day without food, but we can't go without hope.
Mhm.
And however, someone who is, for all of us that feel a certain loss, a certain anxiety, a certain anger, whatever it is, think of, I mean, I shouldn't say think of, because when you're feeling hopeless, you're feeling hopeless. What can give you remember I was talking about the yin yang, what can give you one little point of light?
Mhm.
You know, even in
Where's
the,
your glimmer?
say again, a
Where's your
glimmer.
glimmer?
Yes. You know, in the Lorax, at the very, and it's a Dr. Seuss book about the environment. And I guess the Lorax threw down one seed of a truffula tree. And I remember that's where the hope was,
Mhm.
that things can grow in the future. And
That's why we give out seedlings at funerals. Or plant
we
trees
plant
in honor of
trees.
someone.
We
Mhm.
plant trees. Exactly. And it is just important to get to one little speck of light. Just one speck. I can't tell you what's going to happen with it, but one speck of
thing.
light.
Mhm.
And with that little glimmer, can we light
Someone
the
else.
light within somebody else?
Mhm.
It's like, it's the, if you've ever built a fire, it's the tiniest of kindling, and it's all important.
All of it.
All of it.
I'm going to put the dogs in the car and go look at Christmas lights with them.
I'm finally going to celebrate my daughter's birthday from the 11th tonight. So,
Yay, happy birthday, daughter.
yeah. You
That's
know, and think about, as a relative, doesn't matter if you're the parent or not, you know, you never know what kind of light being you have birthed.
Mhm.
Or will they have troubles all their life? I mean, those shooters were someone's kids.
Right.
And they also, always hope the best for their child.
Yes.
And here's where I diverge and say, I'm not in charge.
We can't fix it all. We can take care of one another, take care of ourselves, take care of even the snarkiest little dogs.
Ha.
We can, and my apologies to everyone who was hearing the dog barking. He was in a mood today. We can find the hope and also hold space for the loss and space for grief. And you can still take some joy in the holidays. You can do all of that all at once. We don't have to be all in one space. We can have all spaces.
We've talked about this before. For whatever reason, every one of us has our own, as I was talking about the person deemed president, we all have our ideas of hope and what that looks like and when it should happen. And notice I'm using a lot of ands today because we need to say and because you have this all at once. And it's really hard not to have those pictures of what we'd like. And it's hard not to have anxiety, right? Of what you'd like. Like, will it happen? Will it? That's the anxiety. Mm-hmm. You know, the picture is it'll happen this way. Look at, even great psychics are not that good.
Right. And so for the holidays, you can, in fact, look forward to things being good, but not perfect. We're not hitting Hallmark. And if you are anxious because you are out and about and you're thinking about how things have been this last week, take some time out, center yourself. You need to find a safe spot to sit and make sure that you're able to feel a little safer. Do the little check behind you to make sure there's no saber-toothed tiger back there, right? Use the anxiety management and allow yourself to enjoy the parts that you want to. You don't have to make it perfect, folks. It can be just okay. It can just be that you're with people you love.
Perfectly imperfect.
Absolutely. We don't want to shoot for perfect because it's not real.
Well, I guess next week will be the day after Christmas, where we invite everybody to show up with a beverage of their choice, no judgment, the day after Christmas, and show up in your pajamas, whatever they look like.
Right. And we will pull you on screen because we can have lots of you.
Yes.
So if you show up, there is a chance you will end up on the screen.
I love it. I just love it.
So please join us back next week. We wish you all a very peaceful end of Hanukkah, a very joyous Christmas.
And Yule.
And some quiet time. And some meditation time, and some good food, and some chocolate.
I'm in.
All right. See you all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.